This is Tim.
This is Patrick.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Patrick in Kumamoto. How are you doing?
I'm good. Us Southerners down here starting to enjoy the warmer weather. What's it like for you Tokyo Yankees?
Yeah, it was fairly warm here today, too. I'm a little bit afraid to go out because of the cedar pollen, but...
Yeah, tell me about it. Man, I regret all the times I made fun of poor allergic people. You know, like coworkers who would come to work by bike or, you know, like little motorbike or scooter. And they would have on masks and goggles and, you know, gloves and everything. And I was like, man, is it worth it? You know, like...
And then the allergy got to you.
That's right. It was after about 15 years of being in Tokyo, it finally started to affect me. Mm-hmm. I got the what do you call it? The steroid shot a couple times, twice so far, and it's worked for like 2 seasons, like 2 years. But I don't like taking it too much in a row because, you know, if my body gets used to it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So what are we doing today, Tim?
Okay, well, you know, just no sooner had I said, oh, we've used up all our comics for Critiquing Comics. There's no queue. Then I got like 3 submissions. So we're still in business here in Critiquing Comics. So this time we've got a comic, I guess both written and drawn by Dave Swartz. It's called...
There's no like credits page except for on the cover.
Yeah, it just says by Dave Swartz. Yeah. This is the first issue of Confederate Monster, which I guess he's self-publishing as far as I can tell.
It looks like he's doing it on his Patreon.
Okay.
So I you know, like I'm curious, you know, like how that model works for him. You know, if it works for him, wow, that's pretty cool. Because, you know, if you can make a living without involving a lot of people in the middle, you know, I'm all for that.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to do that. It's bringing in something for me, but yeah, it's great for people who can really succeed at it. Just to summarize the story a bit here. So the main character is a guy named Daniel Schmidt, a German doctor in Virginia in 1864. He's living there because his wife is from there and doesn't want to leave. Boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Well, not for me. Not for me, because I was living in Tokyo with my wife, and she did not want to come back to where she was from until, you know, we had a little girl, and we were just where we were from, like, distance from the station and having to do things by train and everything. When, you know, when you're here, you can use a car. And it's so much easier to have a little kid with a car than it is doing everything like shopping with a little kid on the train, etc., especially like when it's crowded.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was kind of a reverse of that.
But I got to thinking, like, nearly everybody involved with deconstructing comics and critiquing comics has moved to or is living in the country that their wife is native to. That's interesting. Or ex-wife in my case and Mulele's case. Anyway, so Daniel Schmidt is fitting amputee soldiers with prosthetics, although he doesn't really like helping white supremacists like that, but the Confederacy figures out who he is and wants him to reanimate their dead soldiers, and to coerce them, they kidnap his wife, and that's not all they do. I won't spoil that part. But yeah, I thought this was pretty good, both art and story-wise. What did you think?
So, I think the plot, like basically like combining the Hitler looking for mystical artifacts at the end of World War II and moving that kind of idea to the Civil War, where the losing South is looking for desperately for some non-natural ways to help get the tide moving in their favor. Mm-hmm. So I like the plot for sure, and the art. I mean, from the cover, from the beginning, I'm already into the cover. Like I like the worn look. I like the looks like it was printed instead of digitally colored.
Mm-hmm.
I like that whole idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit picky about the lettering, but that's something we can talk about as we go through it. So I like the story. I like the art. Let me just say that going in before I start nitpicking.
Well, yeah, my notes were kind of nitpicky too. I mean, the art and the storytelling of the art and the basic story idea I thought were all good. And so I was, even though it's a little bit horror-y, and I'm not a big horror guy, but I was, interested in knowing what would happen.
What's up with that, Tim? Why aren't you a big horror guy? Huh?
I don't know. Some of us just aren't. But I don't know. My main note, I mean, it was like kind of out of the Critiquing Comics Tropes book. The same things that keep coming up again and again. He needs an editor.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. You took it right out of my mouth. And, but first, look, I think we should remind our listeners that what we're doing with this is we're not trying to be mean, and we're not trying to make anybody feel bad. But what people want when they want to critique, they want to know what they can fix.
Yeah, exactly. How can they make it better?
And so that's really what we're what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so I was finding like confusion of YOUR, your versus U apostrophe RE, your, or the two different it's with apostrophe or without, commas in the wrong place, a few kind of odd sentences that didn't really work grammatically, like on the 17th spread of the PDF, an event the locals have called but dare not speak, the Night of Horror.
Yeah. So do they call it, or do they don't call it?
They call it, they don't. Yeah, but dare not speak the night. It doesn't really work. Also, on the 16th spread, the only outright malapropism I found here, which was where he says, the guy says to Daniel, "You had concurred death to rise again." Concur is agree. You want conquer with a QU in the middle of it.
Right.
I was like, what? Concurred death? What, you agreed with death? No. But, yeah, so if you got an editor to check it over, they would catch these things.
Exactly. Or type it in a Google Docs, and Google Docs will let you know about some of these. They're not going to let you know about some logic problems. Like some sentences to me did not quite make sense from the very first page. He talks about fireflies.
Mm-hmm.
and their beautiful miracle. And he talks about suddenly their joyous symphony rings out through the shadows. And I get the feeling he means the symphony of the visual symphony, like the music they make with their lights. But I don't understand how that is if the darkness would last forever. I would say that should be logically as if the darkness could be banished forever, or fought against, or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So there's a
quite fit
couple things
together.
like that I think, and I was thinking, all he needs is an editor, because like I said, I like the story. I think there's another couple of like comic rules, and I know rules are made to be broken, but there's another couple of comic rules which, if he would have followed, would have made it a lot easier to read. For example, on spread number 3, on the second page, the last panel, where the injured soldier realizes he's lost his leg from the shin down, and the other his doctor recommends him to the main character, the surgeon, and says, he's going to give you reconstructive surgery. His name is Dr. Daniel Smith. He can help you get back on your feet. There's no reason for this to be in a narrative box, like in a narration box, This should just be a regular dialogue box, a regular balloon, I mean.
Well, I mean, it is a change of scene. It is kind of a voiceover, but yeah, he hasn't distinguished it from the omniscient narration boxes. It looks the same as those. So.
Okay, so now, I mean, you're right that it is a change of scene, but for me, the change of scene wasn't quite clear. I kind of thought he was.
No, so he's
because they're already taking him somewhere.
So he's with the. So yeah, they're taking him on a stretcher, and then the next panel he's with a doctor, and
it's not a tent.
That's
right.
This is a separate place. Yeah, this is in a building, and the doctor is talking to him, and then the doctor's voiceover continues into the last panel where the injured soldier is standing outside Dr. Schmidt's clinic.
Right. So yeah, if it was maybe like differentiated from the rest of the narration. By the way, I understand using this font to give it that Confederate war feel, but it's hard to read, and that's probably why a lot of mistakes will happen with like apostrophes and such, because it's hard to catch when the text is a little bit difficult to read. I mean, I read it fine, but it did slow down, I think, the reading. And so, yeah, like I said, this shouldn't be a narration box unless it's somehow differentiated from the other boxes. Also, the open sign, I don't know. Seems a little anachronistic.
Yeah, in 1864, I've no idea how they indicated they were open.
Yeah, me neither. So there's a couple of anachronisms in here that, I think in general, like writing speech so that it's recognizable to a modern reader is totally fine. But when we get to it, like the wife saying "excuse you,"
Yeah, that felt anachronistic.
that felt a little bit out of character. So there was a couple of those moments, and so I might adjust those to be more in tune with the period that we're talking about.
Yeah. The one other thing I had, which is, again, a critique in comics trope, In some panels where there was a lot of dialogue, sometimes the reading order was not clear.
Okay, so are we looking at spread 4? Because that's the first time that I noticed that. Spread 4, first panel on the left page. There's no reason why I understand that the first speaker is on the right of the second speaker, and so he did it so that he maybe didn't have to cross the balloon tails, but I don't know. I still found he could have put him under.
You should be able to read top to bottom and left to right, and here you have to go up to the right to get to the next balloon, and then down, and then up again.
Up and then down, yeah.
And it happened again while looking at the names of the pages, it's spread 10, excuse me. CM spread 10, the page by that title. No.
Is this the one that starts morning?
Let's see. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's 9. On CM spread 9 on the right side where Schmidt is talking with the Confederate guy with a mustache. And there's a lot of dialogue there, and I got confused about what order to read it in.
Okay, so
where the mustache guy says, "We just need to ask you a few additional questions before we leave," and then it looks like all of the mustache guy's dialogue should come before all of Daniel's dialogue, but that's not the reading order intended.
Yeah, and I'm not sure which of Daniel's dialogues comes first exactly. I mean, logically, the bottom one comes first.
Well, the way
I'm not sure.
Judging from the actual dialogue, it's the first 2 balloons of the mustache guy, and then Daniel's first one. Thank you for your concern, and then go over to the left. We will do everything we can, and then he asks, "Is that correct?" And then that bottom balloon, yes, we had guessed until around midnight or so, but just by the placement of the balloons, it doesn't communicate that. So, needed some adjustment.
I mean, I like the shapes of the balloons, and I like I think the lettering is positioned well within the balloons with a good amount of margin around the text. I mean, now that I'm an old fart, I just like text to be a little bit bigger. That's all.
Yeah, I guess so. It's not too bad, but I mean, we've seen worse on this show. But
yeah,
more of our critique of Confederate Monster coming up. Unlock more classic early episodes of Deconstructing Comics and get access to hours of additional podcasts about MCU movies and the early Amazing Spider-Man issues by Lee and Ditko. Support this podcast and our other shows at patreon.com/deconcomics.
You like cheap comic books, right? Well, I'm Professor Allen, and I talk about cheap comic books on the Quarterbin podcast. In every episode, I'll dissect a single comic from my collection, as long as I paid no more than 25 cents for the issue. Forget about $4 new comics that you can read in 4 minutes, or crossover events that can cost $100 to collect. Join me in the Quarter Bin, where even bad comics are a bargain, and good ones are a steal. The Quarter Bin podcast is part of the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. Visit us at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search Relatively Geeky or Quarter Bin Podcast in iTunes. I guarantee it'll be worth every penny.
Okay, so yes, there's a little bit with the dialogue placement and some of the text. Okay, now here's really pet peevish stuff.
Uh-oh.
For me. So the very first, I guess you would call it spread 1. I'm looking at the PDF. My PDF only has numbers, 1, 2, 3. So for me, it's the second the first one being the cover and two being the explanation and the first art. The story started.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's the sound effects. You knew I was going to go there.
Okay, a Patrick specialty. Right, okay.
You knew I was going to go there. So the boom sound effect with the extra O and the kapoof sound effect, these are the exact same fonts, just resized and turned at different angles. It's like he used a particular font that, and either the font has alternatives where the letters can go up and down, or he moved them, and then, but either way, he did it once, and then he repeated the same boom, even on this next page.
Yeah, just recycling what he did and resizing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, it just jumped out at me right away because, I tend to look at those things.
Because you're a sound effects geek.
That's right. That's right. So, I don't think anybody's going to, notice this.
I certainly didn't.
But I tend to care about the lettering. I want the lettering to be good quality. I want the sound effects to be created with care. And so I think placement is fine. I just think maybe a little bit more variation there so it's not so obvious that it was, digital, or at least it wasn't the same object being placed several times.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my
nitpicky
stuff. Did I have anything else? Oh, let's see. Well, the story's just getting started.
Yeah.
So I think when we see the monster, and what did they call that night? The night that shall not be mentioned.
Yeah, the night of horror, I want to say. The night of horror.
Okay, so this is obviously not based on the book. This is based on the films.
Right, so we're talking about Frankenstein, because there's a connection to Frankenstein that I didn't mention, but yes. Mm-hmm.
So we have Frankenstein's monster, but even in the films, the fact that that the monster just went on a sudden rampage, that doesn't happen.
In the book?
In the films.
Okay.
Well, it definitely doesn't happen in the book, and it doesn't happen in the films either. I mean, the creature is a much more sympathetic monster. Now, what we don't know is the reality of this. This just might be what the Confederate soldiers have heard about the Night of Horror. This might be something that, that there's more to that we don't know about. But if you've seen the original Universal Frankenstein, then it's a much more sympathetic character, that it just not very smart and doesn't like fire. And that's it's the townspeople rising up against him that, freaks him out, and fire that freaks him out. And then other atrocities is due to the monster's complete ignorance about what's right and wrong. That connects to the book. The book basically, Dr. Frankenstein, after he creates it and brings it to life, he just regrets, oh my God, look what I made. And I brought evil into the world. And he doesn't even, it's not after engaging with the monster or, even doing anything with the monster. It's just, I made it, and now, uh-oh, maybe I screwed up. And turns the monster out into the world without giving it, any kind of direction. And that's where the monster's anger and want for revenge is being spurned by its creator. That's where that comes from. So even, so I hope that as we go on, we realize that there's more to the monster than just rampaging beast. And I assume that there will be, if it's a big part of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and of course, it's 1864. Media is not what it is nowadays. So it would be, this would have been spread maybe primarily just by rumor, so it could have been really distorted by the time it got to the Confederacy.
Exactly. So that's, not devil's advocate, but benefit of the doubt. I think, it's... But I like the visual look of the monster.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. And, I think fix the anachronisms, get an editor, and, like, art-wise, I don't think... And, like, maybe balloon placement, and other than that, I'm curious, about the next issue, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, this comic is, you could say, almost there. I mean, he's got the main points down. It's just the little things that need adjustment.
Okay, there was a question that I had. Like, I guess in your version it would say spread 4.
Okay, yeah, because I've got the thumbnails on the side, so I see the names of the JPEGs that are placed in it. What's going on that spread?
Okay, so it says The Man I Was, and it has him talking to a blonde. And we can assume that's... I mean, I thought, oh, okay, that's his wife. And then you have a brunette who is... Yeah, we don't know who she is.
Well, I think she's married to a senator.
Right. She's married to a senator. But he's kissing on the blonde. But then later, it seems like his wife is a brunette.
Is she wearing a wig? Because it seems like it's kind of a masquerade party.
Yes. So...
Because we've got a pirate there, and yeah, the women seem to be dressed like they're from the Louis XIV's court or something.
That's right, and I see what they're going for. They're making her look like the Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh yeah,
with
okay.
the white stripes on the sides. Mm-hmm. But her expression and everything, I mean, it doesn't connect to me to be the same person that was on the other page. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I guess I was subconsciously a little confused there, too, because I wasn't putting her together with the blonde.
So, yeah, because, I mean, the expressions and everything, she looks more like the upset other lady. And so I wasn't sure what exactly was happening. Do they take off her wig? No. Okay, we don't see it being taken off. So it's... Okay, all right, now that I'm looking at this part, I think, like, the masks are... The designs of the masks are probably seem a bit anachronistic to me.
You mean those skull masks?
Yes, the skull masks of the bad guys.
Yeah, I guess I felt that, too. It seemed more like a late 20th century thing.
Yeah, so, like, I think if, like, a regular skull motif would be fine, but we have, like, looks like one of the guys looks like a judge from Judge Dredd, and, you know, the red with the pointy, and then the guy on the right kind of looks like the Joker. And so, you know, I guess that's okay. You know, I mean, it's fine, but it for me it was kind of, I stopped for a little bit. I was like, these designs are really cool, but I'm not feeling the time period.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, those are little things that could be fixed.
Little things.
So yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I was like, I wanna know what happens next, and I want to know more. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was interested too. So, okay. So of course I'll link to the page that he sent us, and the PDF of the first issue is available to read.
Oh, and anything. And okay, I just want to say one more very positive thing.
Okay.
There there's one. Let's see. They do have the party splash panel, but like basically there's one big like splash panel saved for the very end, and that's a perfect use of a 2-page spread. The party one is good to introduce a bunch of characters at once and kind of set the stage. But I mean, the last spread here where we have a big reveal, that's a really good use of that.
Yeah,
so.
he understands comics language, I think, storytelling language. So yeah,
you get a lot of people just throwing spreads willy-nilly, And so yeah, this one, well done. Mm-hmm. All right, back to you.
Okay, so. Well, before we stop, do you have anything to plug? Well, we should plug our podcast, The Law of Equivalent Exchange, where we about
totally should.
One of the best manga ever, Fullmetal Alchemist. If you haven't read it, you could read it along with us and listen to the podcast. If you're not a manga person, you should still read it. So,
yeah, it's not just for like people who are really into Japanese comics. It's for, if you like a good story and good art.
Yeah, and it's not all YA either. So if you don't like that genre, don't worry.
Yeah, I would say it's it's got some it's got a very wide possibility for a wide audience. I wouldn't have my daughter read it until she's maybe 10 or 12. Mm-hmm. But other than that, and it's perfect for, doesn't matter what sex you are. I don't think it needs to be for girls or for boys like a lot of Japanese comics tend to market to one or the other. I think it's got a pretty good wide readership.
Yeah, it's got a wide appeal. Doesn't feel so targeted. So. And it's really well told and gets into some interesting issues. So definitely listen to our podcast and we talk about it while you're reading it. Yeah. Anything else that you've got going on?
Well, I'm just getting ready for my manga history class that I'll be teaching from April. Mm-hmm. And so I've been working on the individual lessons. I mean, I created the curriculum or the syllabus a while ago, but now it's just which creators do I introduce, which do I have to kind of maybe put on a list and just hand out, or So I'm still working out some of the finer details. It's the first time for me to teach this class, and so I'm looking to steal some good ideas from wherever I can find them and put my spin on them.
Okay. So, listeners, if you'd like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. So, till next time, this is Tim.
This is your guest, Patrick.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics. You can read the first issue of Confederate Monster by following the link in the show notes. Help Deconstructing Comics, Critiquing Comics, and all our podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics. And go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Next week on Deconstructing Comics, Emmett and I discuss W. Maxwell Prince's image series, Ha Ha, an anthology series about clowns that features some of the best artists in the business. See you then.